Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Isle of Wight County's Museum Lunch and Learn. We do these, they're sort of shortened versions of other programs, but they're usually tied to specific anniversaries, like today, 17th of November, which is today, 1928 is when the bridge was dedicated, opened formally. And so we always like to do this presentation on the 17th. Sometimes it falls on a Saturday or Sunday, but usually it falls during the week. So what birthday, and I didn't update my notes here, but 1928, so what birthday is this? Is it 98? Somebody do some math. Got any math whizzes out there? What are we, 98 years old? Was it 93rd? Yep. Okay, 90, okay. Oh, that's right, yeah, I got 92, that was last year. Okay, yeah, 93rd, okay. So our bridge is, well, the original bridge would have been 90. The span, the connection is 93 years old. All right, now I told you we were gonna start off with the quiz. So what side of the water is this photograph of the side of the James River is this taken from, and why? And why? Raise your hand, raise your hand, raise your hand. Come on, yes, sir?
Newport News.
His hand was up first. Yeah, and why? Because of all the built up. I mean, yeah, because the other side, Ragged Island, which actually sort of shows pretty well in that image, it's still the way it is today. When you come across the bridge, the Isle of Wight County side, you're nothing but trees and beaches and things like that. In 1928, that's what they called it, top left, longest of all the world's bridges. They discovered a few years later that there was one longer one, and I think it was one of Henry Flagler's bridges down on the Florida Keys, and so then we started saying it was the longest bridge over water, and that title held for a while, but then they built a longer one somewhere, but it actually had, come on down, it actually held that title for a number of years. Now this is a history talk, so don't expect to see any images of the current bridge, because you can drive out this afternoon and see that if you want. So, and also this was sort of a personal view of things, as you'll see. I've already asked you how many people crossed the bridge, the original bridge. Well, I personally came across it in 1953. Next one, Jennifer. We were looking for a home over here. The Daily Press not only published most of the images that you're going to see here, and that's why I wanted to highlight the Daily Press here. Okay, I'm a member of the Historical Society. Of course, it's really presented by the museum, but the Warwick County Historical Society was really helpful in getting a lot of images, so we like to give credit where credit is due. But the Daily Press supplied a whole lot of images. Actually, we stole them from them. We got them out of the newspaper because it was public property. We're going to sort of talk and maybe emphasize the military aspect of the James River Bridge. You all, some of us probably remember when what did Mercury Boulevard used to be called? Military Highway, exactly. And we're going to show maps of that. And this was part of that, all right, part of the military highway that linked up Hampton Roads. All right, next one, Jennifer. The river, of course, is the reason for the bridge. Its headwaters are up here in Bodytot and Allegheny County. Let me just point way up here are actually the headwaters of the James River. It was formed about 66 million years ago in a geologic era called the Cenozoic, but it's entirely in present-day Virginia, because actually, what's that state to the west of us? West Virginia, thank you very much. The West Virginians really used to claim that they were at the headwaters of the James River because there's a couple little streams that actually trickle down from some of the mountains in West Virginia, but we claim it now as all a part of Virginia. It's 348 or 444 miles long, depending on where you start, the two source tributaries, and it drains a catchment watershed area comprising 10,432 acres. Jennifer, I need a sip of my water. What did I do with that? Yeah, there we go. Oh, I forgot, I just noticed that I forgot one of my props. I normally do this in, oh, very nice, very nice, very nice. I normally do this talk in sort of a semblance of a military uniform. I portray it as a civilian, 1942, civil defense person, and I usually wear the helmet. But I'm not going to do that today because I didn't feel like wearing the uniform today. It's really not a uniform; it's civilian clothes dressed up as a civil defense warden. The watershed includes 2.5 million people, and it's navigable for ongoing ships all the way to Richmond, sort of right in the middle. Next one, Jennifer. The river was a human resource for 12,000 years, and we like to brag about the Isle of Wight County Museum here, that not only do we have the 400 years of sort of English history here in the museum, but we have 12,000 years of Native American or Indian history. But who was here before us? The little marine fossils. We have about 12 million years of, 20 million years of samples of marine fossils upstairs. So you can see everything here in the Isle of Wight County Museum. This was the woodland period. When the settlers got here, they sort of named all these periods, and this is the contact period, roughly 1607. And Indians in Virginia numbered about 50,000 at the time. They were Algonquins, Iroquois, Sioux-Owens, what they said. The Indians call this the Powhatan River, named after Chief Powhatan's Confederacy. And our state fossil, Chesapeakton jeffersonius, is found along its banks. Okay, next one, Jennifer. Next time we might include a picture of Jefferson. Our state fossil, named after Thomas Jefferson, Jeffersonian hold on, let me read it again. Chesapeakton jeffersonius is found in this area, and you can find them in Isle of Wight County. Now, this is an actual photograph of the 3 Jamestown ships taken in 1607. Note that it's black and white. When did the world become colorized? What year? Come on. What was the first color movie? You all know this. The Wizard of Oz, 1939. So, before that, the entire world was in black and white. Okay, now you Virginians now. What are the 3 ships? And nobody better say Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. What are they? The Discovery, Godspeed, and Sarah Constant, or Susan Constant. Very good. And of course, this started the contact period of our local natives. Now, assuming that these ships are just arriving, all right, imagine this, you're taking this black and white photograph in 1607. What shore are you on if they're just coming in? Where are you? Isle of Wight County, that's right, because you're looking at them from any Navy people here? This is the port side, yeah. Next one, Jennifer. All right. This is, anybody know who this is? It could have been any number of kings, but this, okay, James the First of England. James the First of England. So that's why we're talking about the James River. He was James I of England and Scotland, and he reigned from 1603 to 1625. The river was named by the first colonists of the Virginia Company to honor their sovereign, this man. Next one, Jennifer. Now, he was so, and now I'll just let you all read that. Take a minute to read that quote. I love that quote. Just so you're not under any romantic delusions about the folks who settled here 400 years ago. Note the date 1619. That's not only the year of the first attempted settlement here on the south side in Isle of Wight County, but also the year the first black slaves came to Point Comfort, Old Point Comfort, where Fort Monroe is today, brought in by the Dutch, of course. Let me mention also that Isle of Wight County's own Burrells Bay, which is near, let me just point to it here. This is Burrells Bay right here in Isle of Wight County. That's the northern tip of Isle of Wight County, and that's the James River. was once considered by Congress, along with Charlestown Harbor in Boston, to be developed as one of the two greatest naval arsenals of the world. This followed our disastrous military experiences during the War of 1812, but our Burles Bay anchorage was never realized as one of those great naval arsenals. Next one, Jennifer. And if you were standing on the shore along Burles Bay in 1862, you'd have witnessed the passing of the USS Galena, heading up the James River to bombard Forts Boykin and Huger here in Isle of Wight County. The Galena was one of the experimental ironclads developed by the Navy. And we have a cannonball upstairs in the museum. When you come in, you look up to the left, was actually fired by the Galena at Fort Huger. And we know that because the Galena was the only ship in the bombarding squadron that had 9-inch Dahlgren guns, and that's what that is. Okay, next one, Jennifer. This image shows how waterborne trade was conducted between Isle of Wight and the peninsula, sort of just before the bridge was built. Rowboats or sailboats delivered produce such as these, and they call this is a postcard actually. Oh, and Jennifer, we've got an acquisition. Somebody just brought in a postcard. Jimmy, can I hand you that? And y'all can just pass that around. There were tons of postcards that were made, but this is an actual postcard. It's called Pier A in Newport News. But rowboats and sailboats delivered the produce, and here they're being unloaded at Pier A. Next one, Jennifer. By the early 20th century, steamboats such as the Old Dominion Line's Hampton Roads, seen here, plied the waters between Smithfield and Old Point Comfort. This service became obsolete, of course, with the construction of the JRB, the James River Bridge. Let's skip ahead a few years, next one, to the post-World War I issue. What is this? It's the Ghost Fleet, Reserve Fleet, exactly. Now, interestingly enough, do y'all know where it is? Okay, the municipal border between Isle of Wight County and Newport News runs right down the center of the James River, all right? The channel is actually on our side, and all the shoal water is on our side. So all these ships are actually where? They're in Isle of Wight County. Now the sheriff hates me to say that, and we'll go through, now this shows about 300 ships anchored after World War I. You can sort of tell they're World War I ships. They all had to pass the future site of the bridge. Note the twin funnel passenger liner there. They were able to pass under Jawspan once it was built. Next one, yeah, next one. So the need for a bridge across the lower James was recognized for many reasons, not the least of which was our area's experience in World War I, when Newport News became a major port of embarkation and debarkation. The south side was cut off from the peninsula, and motor transport was rapidly replacing horse-drawn wagons. In 1900, there were 8,000 cars in the United States. In 1920, there were 9 million. And by 1929, the year before the bridge was built, there were 23 million. At the urging of local leaders, the privately owned James River Bridge Corporation was chartered by the Virginia General Assembly. Construction started in September of 1927, amazing, huh? To build a system of 3 bridges spanning the James River, Chuckatuck Creek, and the Nansemond River. Projected cost was $5.2 million for a 20-foot wide roadway across each waterway. Next one, Jennifer. On November 17th, 1928, President Calvin, what was his nickname? Calvin Coolidge? Silent Cow. Silent Cow. You all know that joke that some woman, after he had that name, some woman said, "I bet you I can make you say more than 3 words." And he looked at her and said, "You lose." That joke was okay, wasn't it? All right. All right. Sitting in the Oval Office in the White House, he pushed a button that lowered the finished lift span into place. This was the very first time in history that drivers could traverse Hampton Roads on a fixed bridge rather than a ferry. Oh yeah, I have that joke written here. Well, never mind. All right, next one, Jennifer. Notice the headlines. This is the Daily Press front page. This was a big deal here in Hampton Roads. A massive bridge, a mimic naval battle. They had ships out there. They reenacted the Battle of the Merrimack and the Monster Parade. Next one, Jennifer. Now, using these scissors. Now, these scissors are not here in this museum. We have a similar, smaller pair. These scissors are actually in the Warwick County Historical Society building in the old courthouse, in 1885 courthouse. Using these scissors, the ribbon was cut by Woodruff. You can see I'm wearing my helmet in that picture. The young daughter, Woodruff, that's her name, was the young daughter of a businessman and Newport News Mayor, Philip Hayden, who was given most of the credit for obtaining the funding to build the bridge. Woodruff appeared in the woman, not Jennifer here, appeared in the role of the state of Virginia and was surrounded by an escort of 23 fair maidens. These scissors are kept by the Warwick County Historical Society. You probably can't see it, but on the right blade it says Isle of Wight County. Can you see that? On the other side it says Newport News and a number of other things. Okay, next one, Jennifer. We couldn't find a photograph, and blame the Daily Press for that, of the actual 17 November 1928 ribbon cutting, call it scissoring, but this is about 1958. But here, these same scissors now are being used again in a ceremony commemorating the merger or the consolidation of Warwick County and the city of Newport News. The ribbon cutter here, the lady in the middle, is Ms. Philip Hayden, wife of the former mayor, who was present at the 1928 JRB ceremony. Both her daughter Woodruff and her husband had passed away, so she was given this honor. Next one, Jennifer. Back to 1928, the parade. I love these photographs. This is the Odd Fellows float. You know, there are all sorts of men's clubs and things like that, but this is the Odd Fellow, one of many. 30,000 people turned out to witness the formal dedication of the bridge. The Monster Parade was the longest in Newport News history. I think it even holds today. A pyrotechnic recreation of the Civil War Battle of the Ironclads took place on the river. Now let's see, next one, Jennifer. Okay, let me just, I wanted to read this out of the newspaper, and then we'll leave that blank. Now, this is the parade now. It was accompanied by a line of marching military units measuring more than a mile in length, while a long series of nearly 100 lavish historical floats entertained the crowd with such prize-winning entries as the capture of Blackbeard, which was acted out enthusiastically by members of the Women's Club of Hampton. 9 airplanes and 2 blimps flew from Langley Field, added to the martial pageantry of the affair, as did the presence of the USS Marblehead and numerous other Navy vessels. Okay. That's right. We have this. Do we have this video, Jennifer? It's just a couple seconds. Okay, look at it now. Look at that biplane. Look at that. Look at those engines, all outboard. Isn't that something? Now we're on I think this is the Isle of Wight County side, actually. Here's part of the parade. We're trying to figure out the various units. I mean, those are sailors, obviously. Those first ones maybe look like Marines. Those look like Army guys. But that was, remember, 30,000 people. You couldn't tell who these guys were. They got the tallest hats in any case. These are some of those 100 floats that I talked. Oh, there's the Blackbeard one. There's the Blackbeard. The ladies of Hampton, actually. And I think that's Yorktown. I'm not sure. Sometimes they don't even say it. Okay, very good, Jennifer. All right, next one. It's amazing when you go digging where you can find that they had actual film of that dedication ceremony. Okay, now Jennifer, there, yeah, okay, good. Now, note the long ago filled in creek on the top right there. That's where the windward and leeward towers are now, where people live. And the early traces of Jefferson and Warwick Boulevards there. And all that housing is gone. That was World War I housing built for the shipyard workers. The Daily Press wrote of the bridge opening, "It will do more to unite the people of various tidewater communities than any other undertaking, and a new link in the Atlantic coastal highway system." They also said it was a monument to the progress of the territory which cradled the infant republic. Talking about Jamestown, of course. This mammoth engineering achievement presents a striking contrast between the old and new periods of the history of Virginia. Love those words. Next one, Jennifer. The bridge, as completed, was 4.5 miles long. I said earlier, it was called the world's longest bridge, and then the world's longest bridge over water. What side is this photo taken from? Isle of Wight County side, yeah, because that's Ragged Island there. And what's interesting is that's all left natural today, but in the 1950s, they were planning for 1,000 homes to be built and filled in on that Ragged Island. It never happened. There was a headline in the Daily Press that said, "A new epoch in the history of Virginia and the historic waters of the James River have been conquered by the hands of modern constructive genius, inspired by the necessities of 20th century automobile transportation." This was before TV, so they had to write like that. Next one, Jennifer. Okay. Souvenir postcards, and I think this is that one we passed around, were sold by the thousands, like this one. A 415-foot vertical lift span, 50-foot clearance for ships when closed, 50 feet when closed. Less than a year after the bridge was open, the stock market crashed, and the bonds issued to pay for it lost most of their value. Interesting, huh? 1929. Okay. Next one, Jeffrey. And color postcards like this one of the Crittenden Bridge. Remember I told you it was 3 bridges. It was a system of 3 bridges. This is the Crittenden Bridge. How many of you remember this one? Remember those copper, the copper cupolas on the lift attendant's house. This was the second bridge in the James River Bridge system that linked the peninsula with Suffolk, Portsmouth, and Norfolk. In 1988, of course, it was replaced by the current bridge. Oh, what's the name of this bridge, the new bridge? Anybody know? Now we call it the Chuckstuck Bridge, we call it the Crittenden Bridge. Have you ever slowed down and read the sign? The Sidney Bertram Hazelwood Jr. Bridge. Sidney. That's what we call it, the Crittenden Bridge. Okay, next one, Jennifer. This is an aerial photograph of the let me see, of the Chuckatuck Bridge. That same bridge I just showed you shortly after completion. Note the airplane wing. This photograph was probably taken about 1929, and obviously the cameraman is leaning out of the cockpit to take the picture. But the best part of the old causeway for the ferry that this bridge replaced. Okay, Jennifer, next one. A 1928 photo out of the Daily Press. Notice the speed requires a 40 mile per hour minimum. What people are slowing down, taking pictures. Don't block traffic. Speed it up is what the sign said. Despite its initial financial difficulties, the 3 bridges quickly changed the traditional pattern of life on both sides of the river. They encouraged thousands of workers to seek and commute to new job opportunities and also places to live. Next one. The bus from Newport News to Norfolk arrives on the Isle of Wight County side. The toll taker there walks out from his booth to the bus to collect $1.20 for the bus. I think it was 20 cents for an automobile. This is when initially tolls were collected on the Isle of Wight County side. Next one. Larger ships like this one en route to and from Richmond required the bridge to open. This image was made about 1930. Of course, obviously today it still happens several times. Next one. Apparently this became a problem. but really only for us Southsiders, because the tolls were collected over here. Couples would drive out from the Newport News side to party on the bridge. Since the tolls were collected on the Isle of Wight side, after the party, they turned around and went back.
What does that?
Huh? All these Newport News peoples were partying at our expense, or at least at state expense, you know. And I'd like to bring in AES, Allie Edwards Sykes Stevens here. Smithfield established a law office in 1923, but he was the one who actually tried to pass a law to prevent this partying. Okay, Jennifer, next one. This is probably not a petting party, as you read on the last one, but it demonstrates the popularity of the bridge as a venue for, I would say, youthful antics. And what are they doing? We don't know, but somebody took a picture of them. But by 1933, the projected traffic volumes across the bridge were not reached, probably because of the Depression, Depression-era economy. The JRB Corporation went bankrupt, and the bonds were purchased by bondholders headed by a local businessman, J.E.S. Stevens. So we always think that Isle of Wight County saved the bridge. Probably accounts for his political career. All right, now, we're going to show you an image of the, let's see, Jennifer, the next one. I sort of like this one because it showed, see, that's a shipyard in the background. Some water skiing, probably in the maybe the mid 1930s. Okay. All right, next one, Jennifer. Now this one shows you that military highway. See, it came. If you look way over to the right, Hampton and Langley Field, it connected all the way across James River Bridge down. And there are parts of the highway in Norfolk and in Chesapeake, which are still called Military Highway. And then it connected obviously to the naval base in Norfolk. All right, Jennifer, what do we have next? Okay, tank tested. Yeah, okay. Jennifer, do we have the film in here?
I don't know. Keep going.
Okay, all right, okay. In 1928, the U.S. Secretary of War, Dwight F. Davis, directed the Army to develop a tank force after observing tank maneuvers in England by the British Experimental Armored Force. This resulted in the assembly and encampment of a U.S. Army Experimental Mechanized Force at Camp Meade, Maryland. As part of the Hampton Roads Military Highway, the James River Bridge had to prove itself durable in supporting tanks. Next one. A little bit difficult to see, but those are the tanks crossing the bridge. Somebody actually climbed up into the tracework. This column of tanks was photographed crossing the James River Bridge in 1930. They're returning from conducting a military maneuver in Virginia Beach. 65 trucks, 30 carrying combat cars. Next one, Jennifer. 1932, notice you even get a refund. If you shopped over in Newport News, they would refund the price of crossing the bridge. This was in the museum collection. Next one. In 1940, the Norfolk and Western Railway had a coaling station for steam locomotives here in Isle of Wight County in Zuni. Notice how I pronounce it. It's not Zuni, but it's Zuni. There's not much today but some concrete revetments. But this is where the heaviest caliber naval ordnance, 14 and 16-inch shells, were transloaded from rail cars to trucks and then driven along Route 460, still called part of Military Highway, across the JRB to where? Where were they going? Where did they, in those days, where did they load the ammunition for the battleships?
Well,
Yorktown Naval Weapons Station. Yorktown Naval Weapons Station. Okay, not in Norfolk. The reason they didn't do that was because even in World War I and before, they recognized the military vulnerability of the South Side. It was all within range of German, 14 and 15-inch guns. And so everything was built at least 30 miles away to supply the Yorktown Naval Weapons Station. Because when a battleship left Norfolk before it went, overseas, it had to go up to Yorktown to load all the ammunition. Okay, next one, Jennifer. This is a 1940 image. I like this one. Shows the partial thawing after an early solid freeze over the river. Food stands were set up in the middle of the river to cater to auto traffic and pedestrians that ventured out onto the ice. Notice the low barge didn't even require a lift in those days. By this time, the State Highway Commission, predecessor to VDOT, had purchased the bridge for $5.6 million from the JRB Corporation. The Commonwealth took over all 3 bridges as military assets prior to World War II and made them part of the Virginia State Highway System. All right, now, ignore the airplane. Just forget the airplane. Notice the beautiful tracery of the original 1928 bridge in the background. Stop looking at the airplane. That's not what we're here for. It's not an aviation show. But look at the beautiful, there's the lift span on the bridge and the various trusses. See that? And see how the bridge goes all the way going towards the Isle of Wight. I see some of y'all looking at the airplane. Just ignore the airplane. And now you can see where it goes down into the bridge, into the pylons, which are very similar to what we have today. All right, I can see that most of y'all are looking at the airplane. But look at the length of the bridge. I mean, that's what you're supposed to be looking at. What kind of plane is this? B-24. B-24. The world's most produced heavy bomber. We built 19,000 of those in World War II. What this was, and I was just overjoyed when I ran across this video. In 1943, the Army Air Corps now was losing lots of B-17s in the Mediterranean, and so they did some tests to see how you not land, but bring a land-based aircraft onto the surface of the water in order to save most of the crew, and you can see that was successful. Okay, so next one, Jennifer, is that yeah, all right. Because people always ask me, is the airplane still out there? No, it's not. They lifted up. It's relatively minor damage, actually. But they didn't have a full crew on it. They only had a pilot and co-pilot for this test. Next one, Jennifer. I just like this one. Have you all heard of the Garner Airport? It's Isle of Wight County's only airport. Now, don't think Franklin. The Franklin Airport is actually in Isle of Wight County, but it belongs to the city of Franklin. But we have our own international airport in orbit. And I love this little RFD. What does RFD stand for? Rural Free Delivery. Yeah. And this was, again, in 1945 when the Garners were trying to get the little airport going. But my point is they used a B-17 to advertise their airport. All right, Jennifer, next one. This shows the toll booth now. The toll booth now, as of 1955, is collected on the Newport News side. You can see the marquee, Virginia Department of Highways, James River Bridge System. Remember I told you that VDOT now had taken over the bridge system. In 1955, tolls were doubled to $1.80 for round trip and $4 for cars, and then $4 for trucks. This caused J.W. Luter of Smithfield Packing Company to reroute his delivery trucks to the south side to Norfolk. Luter was sending his trucks over the bridge. He was so mad that they raised the toll that he sent all of his trucks with the hog products south to get to Norfolk. He fixed them. Next one. By the 1960s, traffic on the bridge had increased to the point that a single 20-foot 1928 span had become woefully inadequate. This was in June 1956. The photo caption, y'all probably can't read it, but it says it's an empty gasoline tank truck that went over, and it says only the rear bumper kept the trailer from going completely in the water, and the driver escaped through the cab window. All right, Jennifer, next one. From 1973 to 82, a replacement double-span bridge was built at a cost of $75 million. What was the original cost? 5.2. These would no longer be 20-foot wide spans, and they wouldn't have opposing lanes, so you can see it's much safer. Two 30-foot wide spans would be built with no opposing traffic, and construction commenced from both sides of the bridge. Now, okay, what side does this show? Where are you and why? Newport News, why? The power poles, right? By now the power poles are built, and they're always on the, what's that, the west side, I guess. Okay, Jennifer, next one. The first precast section was lowered under the concrete pilings in August of 1973. This shows construction from the south side, about 1975. How do we know it's Isle of Wight County? Where are the power poles? They're on the left side, yeah. So you all know this. It's when you see it, you know. And the bottom right corner is the James River Bridge Hotel. A little bit hard to see, but that building at the bottom, built in 1937, had several cabins hidden in the. We'll talk about those later. And with this today, we know this is the Stoop property today. Our next one, Jennifer. Continuous traffic flow was maintained in both directions during the entire 10-year construction period. But the toll was lowered in 1974 to 10 cents per axle for all vehicles in a public relations move to reduce customer complaints about the temporary inconvenience of slower traffic. Okay, next one. This is a close-up of the way you got over to go. You can see the cars went over, and that's why they they were able to do the continuous traffic. Okay, next one, because it was just temporary span in the middle there. This is an aerial view of the span before the new lift section was completed. There were traffic signs on both ends warning detour at drawbridge. This was in the newspaper. This caused one driver to comment at the time that my vivid imagination made me visualize a detour into the water. That joke was a good one. All right, next one. Photo taken August 7th, 1979 shows both old and new lift spans in place. Here's how it worked. Listen carefully. The two southbound lanes of the new bridge were completed first and carried the northbound traffic, while the old bridge carried two lanes of the southbound traffic, and all the northbound lanes of the new bridge were completed. Did you all get that? I didn't get it either, but that's okay. But they had traffic in both directions. You don't want me to say that again, do you? When the northbound lanes of the new bridge opened, the old bridge was demolished in 1983. Next one. The old bridge was dismantled, was the word they used, with explosives, and then recovered in large pieces from the river bottom. Here is one of the dynamite setters. Now, I love this. This is long before OSHA, right? Notice this guy is in full protective gear. Yeah, what? A helmet, yeah? Well, and I guess he has gloves too. Those are sticks of dynamite there. This was in 1983, and he's getting ready to put the dynamite in place to blow the bridge down. Next one, Jennifer. And here's another explosive expert described as a dynamite handler. He didn't have a helmet on. Maybe the mustache gave him some sort of protection. But notice, bare hands, T-shirt, tennis shoes, jeans, and no safety harnesses or helmet. Where was OSHA in 1983? All right, the result, Jennifer, part of the old span comes down at 9:08 p.m., 1 July 1983. Students from Hilton Elementary School and several hundred other people gathered on the North Shore riverbank in the morning to watch the announced fireworks, but it didn't happen until 9 p.m. Next one. I know. Next one, Jennifer. The finished. This is the finished new bridge at sunset. I just like this image. That's all. One of my favorite bridges. It's pointing towards Isle of Wight County. You can see the poles on this side. The new replacement bridge was funded completely with road use taxes rather than revenue bonds repayable with tolls as the old bridge was. Next one. I just like this picture. This is 1997. Somebody took a picture of a tornado, but they're actually called water spouts, exactly. You can see the bridge over there on the right. Just like that picture. All right, but next one, Jennifer. 1 mile of the old 1928 bridge was left undemolished on the North Shore and led to a second happy life as the James River Fishing Pier. If you all need to go, if somebody's pressed for time, I just ramble on and on, but you're not going to hurt my feelings. You have to leave. It was proclaimed as the longest fishing pier on the East Coast, 1 mile. It was demolished in 2015 after saltwater corrosion had damaged the steel under the structure, and it was replaced with a multi-million-dollar concrete pier that stands today. All right, Jennifer, next one. Another important part of the James River Bridge story was written by this lady, Barbara? Grace Keene. Grace Justice Keene. In 1980, this is one of my favorite stories. In 1987, politicians on the peninsula petitioned the Virginia General Assembly to formally rename the JRB as the, get this, Delegate Lewis Archer McMurran Jr. Memorial Bridge.
Oh my goodness.
All right. The Isle of Wight County Citizens Association, led by Grace Keene, cajoled, lobbied, petitioned, and traveled to Richmond twice to convince the General Assembly to retain James River Bridge as the official name. She was ultimately successful, and we all should think of her each time we traverse the JRB and not the DLAMCMJB or whatever. Next one. In 2004, Grace Keene, as Citizens Association president, again led an effort to preserve a historic local landmark, the architecturally unique Toll Plaza building in Isle of Wight County at the south foot of the bridge. This modest structure was designed in international style for the 350th Jamestown Tercentennial celebration in 1957. And it was deemed eligible by VDOT's own historian as a National Historic Landmark for designation. And note that quarter-round curved window. Next one, Jennifer. As these newspaper headlines from the Daily Press, Virginia Pilot, and Smithfield Times show, the effort to save the building was well reported in the local press. Supported by the Historical Society and the Carrollton Civic League, the effort failed because it was later revealed that VDOT had excess money in its demolition budget and was determined to spend it. The VDOT officials we met with, I was part of this several times, were never negotiating in good faith. We didn't know this. We didn't find that until years later, that they were just, entertaining us by pretending to be interested in us. So they had already, the guy who talked with us actually got a bonus next year for being able to spend that excess money they had in their demolition budget, because if they hadn't spent it to destroy this building, they would have lost it. And they spent $80,000 alone just on asbestos mitigation. So the whole point was to spend as much money as possible to get rid of that little building. Amazing, huh? Next one, Jennifer. And what happened to the empty space? This is a view recently, and I think you all have seen this many times. That's Chief Joel Akery from the fire department, Carrollton. We put a little memorial there to line of duty deaths in Isle of Wight County. Let's see, there are 2 firefighters. There's 1 Smithfield policeman, 1 Isle of Wight County sheriff's deputy, and 1 Virginia State Police there. And you all should pull over. As you come off the bridge, slow down. You can actually pull in. There's time to pull in there and look at those and read those plaques. Next one, only a few artifacts remain today. This is the safe from the Toll Plaza building that lost its door in the recovery attempt. This historic artifact lies rusting in my yard. It weighs 7 to 8, it'll eventually go to the museum. Jennifer wants it. It weighs 800 pounds. I maintain, now listen to this, I maintain it retains the DNA traces from every person who passed cash to the toll collectors for some 50 years. So how about that? Next one, this is the safe door. I just went out there and got on and just claimed it. And he was going to load it in my pick-em-up truck. And when he picked it up, the door flopped open and broke off. Broke my heart, but that's okay. We still got all the pieces. Next one, and finally, this cabin from the 1937 James River Bridge Hotel still exists. It's in Battery Park. In fact, for the full story, you can go on the museum website and see one of these behind these walls presentation that Jennifer does about the story. But these were several little cabins near the hotel that were rented by the hour rather than by the day. Draw your own conclusions. Until recently, moving right along, until recently, there were two of these little buildings on Rescue Road in Battery Park. One was used as a barber shop for many years. Next one, that's the hotel itself, about 1937. And you can see the little cabins off to the side. There were two in the front and then 4 more in the back. All right, next one. One of the most spectacular sights visible from the James River Bridge is dry dock number 12 of I call it Newport News Shipbuilding and Dry Dock because they change the name every decade or so, whatever they call themselves this year. Funded by industrialist Collis P. Huntington in 1886, it is still the only shipyard in the world that builds nuclear supercarriers. One can follow the construction of these mighty ships as you glance to the right just before you reach the Newport News shore. This is the Roosevelt in 1985. I'm not sure what ship you can see today. Next one, Jennifer. And finally, my very own Carrollton Fire Department. We call ourselves the Bridge Keepers because we're called to respond to all emergencies on the JRB, single and multiple vehicle collisions, truck fires, people, cars overboard, jumpers, heart attacks, boats overturned, diabetic emergencies, rescues of all kinds. We go there. We've been there twice already this week. There's all kinds of excitement on the bridge. I remember a couple of years ago, we even responded to an anxiety attack caused by a driver who stopped right on the lift span draw because, I don't know, was it he or she, was afraid to continue driving when it started. So it got an anxiety, so we had to go out there, and I think it was a woman, but I don't know. All right, well, with this, let me stop and ask for any questions. I've gone just a little bit over time, but I think, Jennifer, that's what's left of the James River Reserve Fleet today. And we can talk. Now, we have a special presentation. We have on the James River Reserve Fleet. But we'd like to thank everybody for sticking with us today. I know we went a little bit long, but we hope it was entertaining, and we hope you learned something about the history of our James River Bridge. And as I said, we don't show any modern images because you can go out there and look at it today. And we thank everybody for either being here in person or tuning in digitally. Thank you very much.